Okay, so in this video we are looking at A Day in the Life by the Beatles from 1967, and we're going to just do a bit of an overall look at things. So these kind of musical elements here, they're to do with the overall structure of the song, so we'll look at those, and these ones here, which are a lot more in detail, we'll do in some other videos. So I'm just going to start with the style that we're looking at. So we're probably looking at pop music from the 1960s or contemporary music from the 1960s. However, it's important to note that there's a healthy dose of avant-garde. So avant-garde kind of means new, so it could mean new music, but I think maybe a better definition of avant-garde is experimental. So it's experimenting with the traditional forms and stuff. So this song has a lot of experimentation with the usual stuff, and so it's important to remember that as we look through, otherwise it can be confusing. This is not the normal pop kind of song, and the Beatles were very specifically trying to stretch the boundaries, trying to be experimental. So just a real quick note about the instrumentation, just a couple of little things. So first off, Georgie boy here, I rubbed him out. He plays bongos in the background as far as I can tell, doesn't do anything else. I have arranged this for these instruments down the side here. However, just remember that this is a recording project, so it's been, the acoustic guitar track might be 10 guitars chopped all together, like in overdubbing and tracking, and the bass guitar might have been done in 4 takes. The vocals were definitely done in a whole bunch of different takes. So just to remember that it's not exactly like this. I didn't sit down and exactly do it. So, and the orchestra is half an orchestra doubled up, stuff like that. And I've also added this effects track in, because the effects and things going on, they're probably an important part of this recording, and so there's got to go somewhere so we can analyze it. All right, so first off, let's have a look at meter. So meter just being slightly different to rhythm. So meter is the pulse that goes along underneath the song, and the rhythm is what kind of sits on top of it. So these notes here, these are rhythm, and this sort of metronome marking, that is the pulse of the song. So we've got, the pulse is 77 beats per minute, so it's quite slow. And probably the most important thing about the meter is it's in swing sixteenths. So swing sixteenths, here we go again. We've done swing eighths, but swing sixteenths. So the eighth notes are like this, are played straight, and the 16th note should be played as a triplet. However, the middle note here would be a rest. So how can we draw that? So it should look like that, I guess. That's a triplet. That's really what's being played. So if we have a look down here, where it's, what is that? Dot, 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 dot. So we're getting really that's straight 16ths, and swing 16ths would. That's very swung 16th. There's probably not quite that much. And so obviously if we wrote the whole song out like that, that would be incredibly confusing to look at and difficult to read. So we write everything out as 16ths, and then we put swing 16ths at the start, and the meter is a swing feel. So yeah, important little point there. Moving on, so you can see down here in the drums, we're still looking at meter, by the way. The drums are doing these fills rather than playing a beat, and what seems to have happened is that John and Paul from the Beatles seem to have encouraged, bullied Ringo into playing a thing they called lead drums, which means just sort of play what you're feeling, don't play a regular beat. And so that's interesting, because in most contemporary music, the drums really lay down the meter and the pulse of the song, but they're not doing that in this song. So that's really, really interesting. So you can see that the pulse is really here in the piano, and in like an 8th note strumming pattern. So the piano player has to play and then the drums are doing all the fills that usually the piano would do. So that's really quite an interesting little take on meter there. I think it's interesting anyway. Oh, talk about things that I think are interesting. Right, here we go. Double time feel. You can see that up here. So What has been happening is the song has been going along at 1, 2, 3, 4. But in this middle section of the song, it feels like it's going twice as fast or double time. So it feels like it's going maybe down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've written double time feel. You could actually just write it as double time. So up here I could have put metronome equals 144 and then written it all out as actual double time. But I didn't do that because it's only a short section and it feels like double time to me. Some other little indicators are down here. We've got the acoustic guitar, which looks like off beats, but really these are now 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're really emphasizing where the snare would be, and they're kind of laying down the meter again. And you can see down here in the drums we've got that like a snare beat on every beat, and that's kind of a Motown kind of sound. We go snare, 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 snare kick, snare, snare, snare. So that all of that adds to this double time feel, which I think is quite interesting. And yeah, as far as meter goes, you don't often get to talk about meter, but there's quite a lot of meter things going on in this song. All right, that's enough about that. Moving on. We're going to look at tonality or key. So in contemporary music, we usually just use key signatures because there isn't a lot of tonality changes. However, in this song, there is a lot of tonality changes, so we're going to get stuck into it. So first off, we're going to start with the easy thing. We've got a G chord here, we've got a G chord here, we've got a G key signature, and we've got a melody up here that is loosely in G. You maybe could say it's in E if you were confused, but there's no D sharps for the harmonic minor or anything like that, so it's in G major. So we start off in G major, nice and simple. Moving along, this verse again is in G major, but we have a really interesting chord down here. So if we were to analyze this as a scale degree, we would say this chord is on the lowered 7th. Some people might say the flattened 7th. I like to use lowered 7th because flattened, often people get confused with the flat symbol. So we should have an F sharp chord there, but we have an F chord. And so that's outside of the key center. And it sounds a bit like this. So the key center is... And then here's the extra chord. And you get it in a lot of songs. It's a really common progression. You might get it in Proud Mary, maybe. Oh no, Sweet Home Alabama. Yeah, so it's a really common technique that it's outside the key that we're in. So a little bit of fun for you there. Oh, I've deleted the wrong thing. Okay, so we've had a couple of G majors and we get to the chorus, as they call it, and we've got a few things going on. So if we analyze this part here, look at that we've got a nice C chord. So we start off in C major, and then what we have is way out here somewhere, we have a goal of an E major. And to get there, they told the orchestra and everyone playing, hey, just randomly glissando and slide your way and eventually end on an E in 24 bars time. So you can see the bass here is sort of going up chromatically, I guess, a little bit until it gets stuck on this E over here. Same with the piano, it just hits on an E the whole way through. And then everyone else goes up and down. And there's no key center really here in this transition. So we might use the word for that then is atonal. No tone, no tonality. It's atonal. It's whatever tonality you want. It could potentially be even less than atonal. You could almost say it's noise because they're really doing slides and micro tuning and all this kind of stuff. But I think atonal will probably do for me. You might come up with a better word yourself. So really interesting that this section transitions from one key to the other using an atonal slide. So yeah, pretty out there stuff. Here we've got the middle section. In this middle section, we've moved to the key of E major. I haven't done a key signature because this section's only 10 bars long, so I didn't bother with a key signature. I just put some sharps and accidentals in there. You can be angry about that if you like, whatever. You can see here there's some sharps. Again, an interesting thing here is in E major, if we're in E major, that again here we have the flattened 7th chord. So it comes up again. So that's a nice little thing that's happening there, little echo of what happened before. Oh, another little fun thing. Okay, so if we look at here, up here, I've just changed the layout of this score, you can see. So these 4 lines now come down to here. That helps. So we start up here in E major, and we finish down here in G major. And this middle bridge is a transition to get from E to G, and it uses quite a common technique, which is either cycling of fourths or cycling of fifths, depending on how you want to think about it. So G is the 5th of C. D is the 5th of G. So this is really common. You'll find this in all types of music using this 5th, and we're not using any change of chords. So we're not using major or dominant or minor. We're just using major. We're not using minor or dominant or anything else, which is quite unusual. And so it gives you a feeling that you don't know quite what key you're in, because you keep going to the 5th of the next chord of the next chord of the next chord, until eventually we get down to here. Ooh. And then we actually have a proper cadence where maybe it wasn't clear enough, but they've actually gone, hey, 5-1 please at the end here. So to give you a bit of that sound, I guess we're in this key, E major. And then we go. And then to finish into G, we do the cadence. Obviously that was ridiculous. You'd never do it like that, but you get the idea. I love it. Changing keys. What key is that section in? Who knows? It's a changing section. Fun. Oh, okay. And this is just a point to say that the song ends back in the key of E major. I guess I should show you this, because this is this big glissando that I was talking about. Start as low as you can, go up to high, and end on an E. And then here is a very famous massive E piano chord, and there's like 20 people trying to play this E chord at the end on different pianos and harmoniums and all this kind of stuff. So we end in E major. For no particular reason, I guess. It just does. Okay, let's move on. I think we've got form next. We do, and I hope this is big enough for you to see. So, talking about form, I think I've just got to explain to you that usually in a contemporary song with form, what we would be expecting is verse, chorus, verse 2, chorus 2, bridge, and chorus. Something along those lines. So this is a bit avant-garde, it is a bit experimental, and we don't get anything like that. So, this is back in the 60s, so this format at the top here, this form is not even that secure yet. Like now, that's super secure form. But so this is really out there, this form of A Day in the Life. So if we just have a look at it, first thing we've got 4 verses, which is unusual in itself. But the verses are also, this verse is 10 bars long. This is 9, this is 9, this is 9. So the fact that there are unusual length verses is weird. The fact that they are different lengths is also strange. I mean, realistically, they're just following the lyrics. When the lyrics finish, the verse finishes. So that's what's happening. But yeah, that's quite unusual. We also have the chorus here and here. And the chorus has one melody line. And the only reason I even know this is the chorus, because it just sounds like the end of the verse, is because the Beatles in interviews actually say this is the chorus. So if it wasn't for that, I don't even think you would necessarily know that that is the chorus. And also the chorus has this big crescendo in it. There's a lot of... It's an unusual chorus, put it that way. Okay, and then we get to the middle section. The middle section is in a different key. We don't really call it a bridge because it's in a different key. It's sung by a different person. It's done in a different feel. It's quite a different section. It's got very little relation to what happened before. So I think in general it's called a middle section rather than a bridge. And so that happens. And then we have this bridge that I showed you before, called a middle bridge, I guess, where we transition back to verse 4. Yeah, again, quite an unusual section. You could probably call those middle sections whatever you want. So if we're analysing that form, we're going to have verse 1, verse 2, verse 3, chorus, question mark, verse 4, chorus, and then what have we got? We've got an ending and we've got a run-out groove. So a run-out groove down here probably not part of the form of the song. It's the run out groove is what is left on the very end of the record player as it spins out and ends the record player. What happens right at the end? So that little part happens there. So yeah, okay. So that's form. Pretty unusual and pretty interesting. I pressed the wrong button. Time for some exam revision questions. Well, I mean, this first one, what a great question. It's like I invented it myself. Summarise the different tonality in this piece. Okay, so if we're looking at that, we've got to look at this. It's worth 3 marks. So we can't just say, oh, it's in G and E. We've got to give some detail. So we're going to say, for example, the verses are in G major. The chorus is atonal. And the middle section is in E major. You know, you would want to put some detail on that to get you 3 marks. So, you know, trying to be specific. So there we go. Compare the arrangement of this piece with Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? So compare questions are a really common musical question. This is a great question again. Who would have thought? You know, so again, I would, with a longer question, so we're trying to get some marks here, you probably need to state some sort of thesis at the start of your thing here. So you need to say something like, although Will You Still Love You Tomorrow and A Day in the Life are both contemporary songs from roughly the same time period, they have very, very different arrangements of form. So that would be your opening statement, and then you would give some details of that. So you would say, for example, Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow has a traditional form-based composition. So that it should be A, A, B, A, and then that's done, I think it's 5 times, something like that, maybe 3 times. Maybe you would say repeated if you didn't know in the exam, so you didn't get it wrong. Whereas A Day in the Life has that thing I said before, verse, 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 chorus, middle, bridge, verse, chorus. So a pop form, but very experimental and uneven, I would say something like that. So hopefully that answers that question for you. Okay, and then the bottom one here, I've added a little red herring because often there are questions in exams and they are a little bit off-putting and they put you off. So my tips here would be, if you don't know it at all, just leave it. Don't get stuck there for like 15 minutes. But if not, try and answer it the best way you can. Add some detail in. So we've talked about this in this video maybe, and another video. So we might say, for example, there was tracking, there's effects, there's overdubbing, there's panning, you know, and then if you really didn't know, you could try some things that you know are silly answers. You could say they used microphones. You never know, you might get a mark. It's better than leaving it blank. Okay, so that's the end of that video. Hope that's helpful for you, and I will see you soon.